Good evening, you're watching The Big Question. I'm Sanjana. India's aviation sector could be on the cusp of its most disruptive time ever. And this is a very ambitious disruption. Zomato founder Deepinder Goyal has invested in LAT Aerospace, a startup promising to build a bus in the sky that connects smaller Indian cities with low ticket prices. Now, this isn't just a moonshot, viewers. Domestic air travel has already rebounded to record highs with 16.3 crore passengers flown in FY25, a surge of nearly 12% over last year, and Tier 2 and Tier 3 airports clocking some of the fastest growth rates in the world. The government's Udan scheme has laid the groundwork for regional connectivity. But there's a hard reality beneath the excitement. The recent incidents have reignited public fears about flying. There's also hesitancy whether ultra-low-cost regional airlines can maintain rigorous safety standards. With smaller aircraft, thinner margins, and higher utilization pressures, even a single lapse can erode consumer trust overnight. And for you, the passenger, there's an even bigger question. Will these low-cost tickets come with world-class safety and reliable service? To help us unpack whether this vision can really take flight, we're joined this evening by Parvez Damania, a veteran aviation expert and former airline executive who's seen firsthand how low-cost carriers can transform markets and how they can also collapse under pressure. Sanjay Lazar, CEO of Aviation Consultants, who advises airlines and airports on strategy and compliance and brings deep data-driven insight into the economics of regional air travel. Dr. Sumit Susilan, CMD of Divine Air and a member of the Ministry of Civil Aviation's Airport Advisory Committee, who can help us understand the regulatory and safety frameworks that must keep pace with this growth as he advises the government. And lastly, Kushal Bhagia, founder and partner at All In Capital, an early-stage investor who has backed disruptive mobility startups, including the Sky Taxi space, and who will tell us why VCs are betting big on this segment again. Can India's skies finally go mass market the way budget airlines transformed road and rail? Will consumers, many of them first-time flyers, feel confident boarding these planes after recent incidents? And can ultra-affordable flying deliver on safety, profitability and scale all at once? Let's quickly find out. I'm going to come to you first, Sanjay. Sanjay, LAT and LAT Aerospace, as it's known, is pitching low-cost tickets when most regional airlines are struggling to break even. The government has announced plans to add 50 more airports in the next 5 years, scaling to over 350 by 2047 under the Viksit Bharat vision. Now, given this infrastructure push, does it make the economics of ultra-low-cost regional flying more viable, or would you say it's still an aspirational story?
Thank you for having me on your show. Good morning from Canada here. I've always said this, that India is growing at a rapid pace in the aviation market. Regional airlines were to be the next big thing. I also do believe very strongly in an ultra low-cost airline, which really doesn't exist anymore with Indigo having gone hybrid, and SpiceJet and Akasa, also almost reaching the full service carrier fare. So I do believe, to your point, that this new regional, like an Airbus or a taxi bus or an air taxi service between small regional points, depending on the type of aircraft that they deploy, will have a great market if it's an absolute no frills, low cost, low operation. Now, as far as safety is concerned, this is where the DGCA will have to step up and ensure that every little nook and cranny, every SOP is followed and everything is tacked to the wall. We will have, like you said, 350, 300 plus airports in the next few years. We will also have more than 2,000 wide body and narrow body aircraft within the country. That's not to count about at least another 250 really small regional jets or regional aircraft. So we're going to look at a huge quantum leap in our aviation space. And I do, think that we are actually getting ready for that kind of leap. The DGCA will have to ramp up its workforce. 50% of the DGCA is unmanned. We need to look at that first.
Okay, great point. Parvez, you've seen firsthand how rapid expansion without operational discipline can undo even strong brands. So, with domestic air traffic growing 10% in April alone, outpacing the global 8% rate, are we overestimating capacity to maintain service standards, especially in smaller cities?
So let me correct everybody who's talking on your show. In India, there is nothing like ultra low cost. There, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
What is ultra low cost? I have never been able to define. Even I've been in the industry forever. See, try and understand. In India, we pay fuel by international standards. So whether you are flying a full service carrier or low cost carrier or whatever you may define, or regional carrier, you're buying fuel at the same rate. You're paying lease rents in US dollars, which is keeping on going up. Your spare parts are coming in US dollars. Your maintenance reserve, which is a part of every airline business, is being paid in US dollars. So, and the airport charges are completely controlled by the government. And now, with Gautam Adani and Adani Group coming in, they control the charges. So, where is the question of this line of ultra low cost coming? Except for the fact whether you serve food or you don't serve food, what is the difference? Food is about 100 rupees, 150 rupees. So, what is the difference? So, if you say that regional airlines, yes, there is a huge potential, there is a huge market, but that can only succeed depending upon the government support that comes forward to the regional carrier. The other problem being that you will be surprised if I tell you this, that a regional airline ATR 72 has to pay higher salaries to pilots than an Airbus 320 Indigo. So pilots don't come cheap. They don't care whether you are flying a regional airline or an Airbus. They will charge what they want, and on the contrary, you have to pay more for him to stick around on your regional carrier. So it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy call that I will float a regional airline. I will fly from airports that are smaller than a parking lot. That's all. That's all. With different world they're talking of. You have to use the same Airport Authority of India airports, whether you're flying a regional airline or you are flying a full service airline. So I read the article, but I think they have to do a lot of study before really they can come up to some economical project. The potential for aviation in India is huge, and the potential for regional airlines is even bigger. There are more routes that can be connected by regional airlines than the trunk route. The trunk route, Bombay, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, flooded. So regional airlines have a huge potential, but the economics have to be very fine-tuned. The state government and the central government has to come. See, not every route is under the Udan Regional Connectivity Scheme. Only routes defined by the government come under the Regional Connectivity Scheme. So if today I get up and say I'm going to connect Goa to Cochin and I will get the region, no, it won't work that way. You have to be part of the Udan scheme. You got to bid for those routes, and if you get those routes, you can fly on the Udan route. So I think it's very imperative that the state governments come up with special packages for regional airlines that are going to connect or bring their district place connected to the main city. The central government has to come up with better policies. So yes, they can succeed. Regional airlines have a potential, yes, but with the right kind of economics. That's all I want to say.
Okay, okay, fair point. Dr. Sushilan, the ministry is now scaling up oversight as India is planning, a very, very aggressive airport expansion. And you are somebody that advises the government on that. Would you say that we are prepared to ensure that safety standards and, of course, the regulatory frameworks are in pace with this kind of growth?
Sanjana, for connecting. I would like to say that the standards for applying a 777 which have a 400 passenger capacity or a B200 which have a 6 passenger capacity, the safety standards are same for everyone. We don't compromise with the size of the aircraft or size of the airport. It's always the same, and everyone have to qualify to get the license to fly in Indian skies. As you were speaking about how it's working out right now, I should say recently, I think 6 months back, we have started a flight operation from Raipur, Ambikapur, Bilaspur, and back, and the fare cost 999. hardly 1,000 rupees for that tickets, and they're doing really very good. This was Fly Big Airlines, where they are getting the subsidies from Government of India, and they are increasing the frequency. And the airport infrastructures are also, we are adding on more airport. If I tell you the average, that every year we are adding around 8 airports in Indian, aviation. So now we have the potential to grow, and this will definitely come as an add-on for the airline, because now not even the central government, the Udan scheme, we are also getting the state schemes. The state governments also giving the subsidy to these airlines to operate. There are some states who are giving subsidies like up to 10 lakh rupees for per flight operation. It means suppose if they are starting a new route from their airport, the government is paying 10 lakh rupees for that particular one flight. It's a very good remuneration which the governments are paying, even for starting an international flight, because right now we have only 33 international airports in India. To increase the numbers of international airports in India, now the state government, especially like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, they had started giving incentive to the airlines, which is ranging around 15 lakh rupees per flight. So I think this way the government is trying to incentivize the companies to be in profit side.
All right, all right. So coming to the economics of it, Kushal, your firm has backed air mobility startups. Do you think the scale story, 350 airports by 2047, domestic traffic growing faster than global averages, does it justify the renewed investor excitement in regional aviation?
Yeah, so I think if you zoom out a bit to see what Deepinder is doing or what other startups are doing, they are not trying to compete with Indigo or with SpiceJet or current airliners. They are fundamentally trying to disrupt how aviation works by building cheaper and faster aircrafts. That hasn't been done for a long time, right? It takes us 2.5 hours to fly from Bombay to Delhi today. It used to take 2.5 hours back, 10 years back. It used to take 2.5 hours even 50 years back. So fundamentally, the plane itself, we are still pretty much flying the same technology that we used to fly 20, 30 years back, despite so many other things in the world having changed. I think that is what needs to be disrupted. Of course, keeping the high bar of safety that this sector requires. But if somebody can do that, then you could dramatically reduce the cost of the aircraft itself. You could go electric, you could go autonomous. That would save you the fuel cost. It could save you pilots cost. It could save you if you have a eVTOL type aircraft which can land and take off on top of a building. It could save you the airport cost, and that's how you would kind of dramatically reduce the cost of flying. Uh, Even though has a booming aviation sector, as of now, less than 1 in 10 Indians have taken a flight, right? Despite that, Indigo does more than 1 billion in profits. So if you could have a geo style of disruption here where the cost would not come down by 10, 20%, but let's say 50 or 80% cost reduction could happen with a tech disruption, then you could have a future where 500 million Indians are taking flights. And I think that is what the startup world is kind of thinking of, if that is even possible. I think that is the big opportunity that excites venture capitalists.
Sure, but if we project the growth rates forward, okay, of a 30% domestic growth and 10% monthly increases, a massive airport build out, do you then see a realistic path to profitability for low-cost regional operators in the next 5 years, given your experience in the space?
So we haven't invested in like traditional, aircraft
Sure.
operators, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. Like I'm talking more about companies that are building eVTOL type, flying taxis,
Correct, correct.
which is a very different space from large scale aircraft that Indigo flies or that a SpiceJet flies.
So, Dr. Sushilan, then what are the additional guardrails or monitoring that would need to be put in place if for something like this, if there are smaller operators that are flooding the market?
Sanjana, I should say, like now, as you have seen the LAT aviation, they're coming up with a smaller aircraft, compete with ATR or Embraer. We have a saying that the lands are owned by the people, but the US, like the skies are always owned by US. To get a clearance from ICAO to have a flying aircraft is quite tough. So it's not easy to get into the market with any new concept, because there are so many companies who are trying to get into the drone flyings and all these things. So and basically the ecosystem, it will take time, because I being into the head of policies for drones for government of India, and I know this thing that we are working on this policy for past 4 years, but still we will need time for another couple of years to come up with the entire policy so that we can have a safe sky to fly drone taxis and all. And regarding the smaller aircrafts, definitely we are going to compete with ATR. we have the market, we have a huge market for a regional connectivity, but the shortage are the aircraft. If you say in a regional space, we have only ATR or Bombardiers who are operating, but if you still place an order for these aircraft, you have to wait for another 4 to 5 years. That's a waiting period for that. So if when we say that like there is a monopoly in the market, it's only because of the aircraft. Definitely we are waiting for more player to come into the market, but I think these are the challenges which we are seeing right now.
Excellent. Okay, so let's switch now to, I want to shift gears and go into consumer behavior, because Parvez, if and when you speak to passengers, especially from tier 2 cities, what would you say that they are most worried about? Is it safety? Is it service reliability? Is it hidden fees? Because are there enough passengers to even sustain the routes, not just under an UDAN scheme, but also whether airline operators have that capacity to meet that target?
Okay. First and foremost, it's good the government is building more airports.
Sure.
It's a very positive sign for the industry. But even today, there are many airports, including tons of airports in Maharashtra that are not serviced. So it is not just a question of airports. Airports are there. There are so many airports. I could read out a list to you. For example, Maharashtra is Karad, Maharashtra is Chiplun, Akola, Nanded, Baramati. Airports are there. There are not enough operators. And somebody on your show was talking about inventing a new aircraft. People wake up to reality. I mean, you have no idea when you buy a plane for $40 million or $50 million, $25 million has gone into research. So what kind of numbers that I saw that these people want to invest, that much is nothing. You can't manufacture aircrafts, you can't manufacture engines. We are at a different stage. Yes, we can enter into collaboration with a foreign company and along with the manufacturer, but to reinvent an aircraft which will fly faster than the Airbus 320 or 737, we are living in a different world altogether, I would say. Yes. Now, coming to your question, are there passengers there? Yes. There are a lot of passengers who want to fly. There are a lot of 2 and 3 tier cities which need connectivity. The other problem being, again, the lack of availability of aircrafts. The other problem being there's a tremendous lack of availability of trained manpower. You cannot, even if you are flying an 18-seater plane, let's just go with the assumption, or you want to fly an ATR, it doesn't mean that the qualification for the pilot who will fly that plane is any less than the qualification of the pilot that's going to fly an Airbus. So trained manpower is a restriction. Availability of quality engineers is an issue. Sometimes the airports might be there, but they might not be maintained, or they might not be able to take in the kind of aircraft you want. So India is the fastest growing market in the world, and it will keep growing. Our population is huge, but at the same time, you got to understand there are certain restrictions that are there in this industry. It's a very highly regulated industry. Sometimes I would say it's over-regulated. We always question DGCA this, that, but the DGCA is pretty strict. Licenses are not issued just for the asking. You got to prove your worth, you got to prove your capacity, you got to show your manpower, then you will get a license. So there are people trying, and I hope more and more people come into the field. So let's see how it succeeds. But if you're asking me, are there passengers? Yes. Is there potential? Yes. Is there a potential for regional line? Yes. But with proper planning, you just can't haphazard wake up and say, I'm going to start a regional airline tomorrow.
Absolutely. So you can't just, come in and imagine that it's not going to be an arduous, long journey. I think that's been pointed out by all of the panelists. Sanjay, what does the latest industry data tell us about the untapped demand in India's tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And as per you, what are the business models that are best positioned to then capture this market?
First of all, I want to just correct a misconception. EPTOLs, which Kushal was talking about,
Okay.
is being funded by Indigo, is one of the investors. Boeing is backing it. Archer Aviation has already attained FAA operation licenses, and they're going to be testing it in India. India will be the market leader for VTOLs, and he's absolutely right to back that technology. I expect in the next 5 years at least 100 of them to come into India. It's going to bring down cost significantly in operations because they're eVTOLs. Let's remember, Airbus has now started its own eVTOL vertical, and India is set to lead the world in electric air taxis. So that's going to redefine. Now, I'm not sure if Surabhi Das's company is looking at eVTOL services or not, but I do believe that there is a market here, and it's going to cheapen the way we fly, the way we rent, lease aircraft, the way fuel obviously will not be there because it's eVTOL. The second part is about demand. There is let's understand that Indigo today connects 512 city pairs as a monopoly, and a lot of these go to regional tier 3 cities, not tier 1 or tier 2 cities. This is the significance of the regional sector, which is why Indigo was toying with the idea of the AT220 to come in as a regional jet for smaller airports, not the ones that Mr. Damania mentioned, Nanded and Chiploon and Akola. Those require much smaller aircraft. Be that as it may, the market is almost 23 to 25% of the existing capacity that we are using. And I believe that none of the current airlines, other than Indigo, are well placed to tackle them. They're really not even looking at it, which is why you need secondary and tertiary operators who will come in. Now, an eVTOL scheme, and it's backed by the government of India. They're going to subsidize it rather heavily, from what I understand from sounds in the ministry. If that works out, I do believe there'll be at least a couple of eVTOL operators across the country. That also brings into play secondary types of airports, which may not, this policy has not yet been defined clearly by the government of India. But if they do bring in an eVTOL scheme, which may not have to land at a traditional airport, then that changes the dynamics of the game. You could literally land at like heliports, smaller spaces without traditional, check-in costs, the airport infrastructure costs. It's a game changer if it happens, and the sooner it happens and it comes to India, the better it is for us.
So, Sanjay, let me ask you this then. Should India adopt, and I know there is talk about this, a hub and spoke model that connects, say, smaller airports with larger hubs?
Well, if you go back to Peter Elber's speech at the IATA conference, he's already done that. Indigo has been working on that for the last 2 years. Indigo's theme is that they will be within 300 kilometers of any regional hub. So their main hubs will be within 300 kilometers of a small setup town or a village or a country, and that's their target eventually, to bring it down to 100 kilometers, which is very ambitious. That's how airlines should look at it. Indigo is sucking up customers from little towns into their medium towns and then bringing them for their international operation. And that's how they're looking at going forward. And it's the perfect model. India should follow a greater, decentralization of a hub and spoke. We've got our main hubs. We've got our Mumbai, we've got our Delhi, we've got our Bangalore, which is now growing into a hub. Perhaps we could develop one more, maybe towards the east of the country. But it's the smaller cities that we need. And it's the smaller cities that airlines like Emirates and Qatar and Etihad and everybody is looking at, because they want access to that, regional wealth that our hinterland holds.
Okay, all right. Dr. Sushilan, what lessons can India draw from global examples in making air travel affordable and accessible for a wider population? Could India create its own Ryanair or Southwest?
No, I don't think so. Like right now, we need anything like that. But right now, like the market player Indigo, they're really doing good. It's like a proper planning to operate airline to save a cost.
Sure.
And I should say that like how Mr. Damania said, we don't need investors for manufacturing new aircraft. We need an investor for the engine manufacturing. I should say that around 20% of the airline aircrafts are grounded because of they don't have an engine right now. Indigo, out of around 370 aircraft, 70 aircrafts are grounded because of the engines are under service. No, so I think even the LAT, where you are saying LAT aviation is not coming under the e-voter program. they are coming under the segment of a regional connectivity, which will have a normal small type of aircraft. So government is not planning for any subsidies on these type of e-voters. The subsidies which is getting planned, it's only for manufacturing within India. Like Archer, how Mr. Sanjay said, the Archer is coming to India. It's a US based company. Definitely they are coming to the market, but any e-voter which is coming to Indian market, they will not fly more than 100-kilometer range. So because if it's more than 100 kilometers, they will come into the regional category then.
All
So we
right.
should understand these parts.
Okay, okay. I've definitely learned a lot today. So I'm going to wrap really quickly, but before that, just a quick round of questions. Kushal, with the rise of, digital first consumers and a growing middle class, final thoughts. Is India ready for an Uber moment in aviation, or are there unique challenges that are going to set it apart from other markets?
We are absolutely ready. Like I said, Uber movements, Geo movements, UPI movements, these require fundamental technological innovations. Somebody has to invent a better aircraft, and that's when this will happen. eVTOL looks like the potential answer to that, but 100% we are ready for it.
Okay. I believe somebody wanted to jump in. Parvez,
just
you
one
wanted
minute.
to add something. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I know. I want to add something very important to
Please,
you.
please.
You mentioned Ryanair, EasyJet. These are usually successful in Southwest.
Yes.
But they are operating, they won't fly to Bombay. They will fly to an airport outside Bombay. They won't fly to Delhi. They will fly to an airport just outside Delhi. Now, the problem in India, we do not have secondary airports touching the major central cities. Bombay should have an airport, low-cost airport at Panvel. Delhi should have a low-cost airport somewhere else. So when Ryanair EasyJet lands to an airport outside London, they get subsidies from that city. They get support from that city. We have our airport authority in India, along with the Adani Group, now have a monopolistic thing. You want to come to Bombay from Akola, Nanded, Kolhapur, Baramati, you have to land in Bombay. The other thing the government needs to do, the government needs to create specific slots in large cities for regional carriers. They need to say, okay, anybody coming from district headquarters, we will give them a slot. In Bombay, it's absolutely impossible for a plane to land or get a slot. So the government needs to change their policies, look at regional airline more as a connectivity issue, as a very important need for the country. Then only this growth can occur.
Excellent. Thank you so much to all of my panelists. As always, I'm sure viewers, you've learned a lot. I definitely have. And if Zomato and Deepinder Goyal and Surbhi Das are listening, I'm sure you must have taken into consideration all of these aspects that's also been raised this evening. So whether you see this as the next great transportation leap or an experiment that's fraught with risks, one thing is certain: India's skies are changing. For a country where millions have never flown, the promise of connectivity and low-cost travel is as transformative as it is controversial. And as the next generation of airlines prepares for takeoff, the rest of us will be watching closely to see if they can stay airborne, safely, sustainably, and most importantly, affordably. Till then, keep watching The Big Question. Thank you for watching.